Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we are going to try to really get into SQL triggers and events.
Yeah.
And we have some great material here, and I think we can extract some really great insights and hopefully help you, the listener, to get a good handle on this.
Yeah, this is about automating things within your SQL database.
Right.
So your database can react to changes in data, or you can schedule tasks and it just have your database kind of maintain itself.
Right, right. So it's enforcing rules, making sure that your data is pristine, and also, just kind of taking care of these things that otherwise you'd have to do manually.
Yeah, offloading repetitive tasks, things that you would have to kind of check up on
Exactly. Yeah.
and do manually.
Okay, so let's jump right in here. What is a trigger? I mean, in essence.
Okay, so a trigger is a database object,
Okay.
and it is set to execute automatically when an event happens on a table. And those events would be things like an insert, an update, or a delete.
Got it. Okay.
So when those things happen, this object will run, and it will execute some SQL code that you define.
Okay, interesting. So it's like a rule that's kind of sitting there watching your data,
Okay.
and it's enforcing whatever you tell it to enforce.
Exactly. And you can use it to kind of maintain the integrity of your data.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a rule, for example, that a price can never be zero for a product.
Right.
And so instead of relying on each of your applications to do that, you could just have this trigger sitting in your database.
Got it.
It's always making sure that that rule is followed.
Right. Right.
You could also use them to keep track of changes to your database, like a log. So for auditing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
So you always know who changed what and when.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now we have an example here. Log employee changes. And this is an example of a checker. And every time a new employee is added to the employees table, it automatically inserts a record
Right.
into another table,
Exactly.
which is the employee log table.
Exactly.
So it's saying, okay, this employee ID was inserted. It was an insert, and this was at the time.
Yeah.
So it's just automatically tracking all this. Now, there's a pro tip here that says that we should use triggers for complex business rules that go beyond simple constraints.
Yes.
So I guess constraints are probably a little less sophisticated in what they can do.
Yeah, constraints are more like basic checks.
Okay.
Triggers can be a little more complex than that.
Got it. Got it. I mean,
Uh,
the simple example of logging
Right.
changes. It's a great way to track, what's happening, and to kind of keep a record of the history of the database.
Exactly. Imagine trying to debug a problem. If you can see exactly when data was changed and what was changed, it would be much easier. Or you might have some regulatory requirement to show the history of your data, so triggers can help you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, so there's different types of triggers.
Yes.
There's three main types, and I guess we can just kind of go through them. So there's before triggers,
Right.
and I guess it's a trigger that happens before.
Yeah, it executes before the triggering event.
Okay.
So, for example, if it was a before insert trigger, it would run before the record was inserted into the table.
Got it. Got it.
And you can use this, for example, to validate data.
Oh, okay.
So we have this example here, validate employee salary. So you could check if the salary is negative
Yeah.
and then prevent the insertion of that record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So before it even gets into the database,
Exactly.
you're basically checking it and saying, whoa, 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 no, 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 you can't do that.
Exactly. You use the signal statement to raise an error
Right.
and stop the insertion. Yeah, and you can provide a custom message as well.
Mm-hmm.
In the example, it was salary cannot be negative.
Got it. Got it. So before triggers are really good for validation.
Right.
Okay. And then we have after triggers.
Yes.
And I guess after triggers is just, it's the trigger that happens after the event.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if we're talking about an after update trigger, it's going to fire after a record has been updated.
Correct. It will only run after the update has been successful.
Right.
Okay, so we have an example here, log employee updates, which is similar to the previous one,
Right.
but it logs the updates to the employee table.
I see. I see.
Yeah, so you can see who has changed what and when.
So instead of an insert,
Right.
it's an update.
Exactly.
Got it.
So you can keep track of every change that's made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have, instead of triggers, Now this is a little different.
Yeah.
So instead of triggers don't happen before or after, but they actually replace the triggering event.
Yeah, they essentially replace it with custom logic.
Okay.
And these are mainly used with views.
Okay.
Do you remember what a view is?
A view is like a virtual table
Yeah,
that you create
exactly.
based on an existing table.
Yeah, it's like a pre-filtered or customized view
Yeah.
of the data in your base table.
Right.
And you can't directly modify the data in a view.
Okay.
So instead of triggers come in and allow you to do that.
Got it.
So for example, you have this example, update employee view.
Yeah.
So when someone tries to update the view,
Right.
this instead of trigger intercepts that update, and then it figures out how to actually update the underlying table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's a way to make views modifiable.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now the pro tip here is saying use before for validation and after for logging or auditing.
Yeah, it's a good guideline.
Yeah.
Use before triggers to prevent bad data.
Right.
And after triggers to record what happened.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Now if a before trigger prevents an action, like let's say it sees a salary that's negative.
Right.
Does that leave any kind of trace in the database?
Well, if it uses the signal statement to raise an error,
Right.
then the database will usually roll back the operation.
Okay.
So
yeah.
the attempted insert or update or delete will not happen.
Got it.
There may be entries in the database logs, depending on how it's configured,
Right.
but no actual data will be changed in the tables themselves.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So creating and using triggers, what is that? How do you actually do that?
Okay, so the basic syntax for creating a trigger, I think we saw this before with large employee changes.
Right.
So you create trigger, give the trigger a name.
Okay.
Then you specify the timing, whether it's before, after, or instead of.
Right.
The event that triggers it, like insert, update, or delete.
Okay.
The name of the table it's associated with.
Got it.
And then the SQL code you want to execute within a begin and end block.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And to remove a trigger, you simply use drop trigger followed by the name.
Okay, so drop trigger and then the name of the trigger.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Now this update employee salary trigger,
Right.
it's showing an example of conditional logic within the trigger, right?
Yeah, so it's a before update trigger on the employees table.
Okay.
And it checks if the new salary, so we use new dot salary, is less than the old salary.
Right.
And if it is, then it uses the signal statement to stop the update and raise an error.
Okay.
And it has a custom message, salary cannot be decreased.
So it's preventing the salary from being decreased.
Yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
I see. So this new dot salary and old dot salary.
Right.
That's how you refer to those.
Got it.
Got it.
The new salary is what someone is trying to change it to.
Right.
And old salary is what it currently is.
Right. Makes perfect sense. Okay. And then we have another example, prevent employee deletion.
Yeah.
And this is a trigger that prevents employees from a certain department from being deleted.
Yeah. It's a before delete trigger.
Okay.
And it checks the department of the employee being deleted. So we use old dot department here because it's a delete.
Got it.
And if the department is management,
Right.
then it prevents the deletion.
Okay, so it's basically saying you can't delete employees from the management department.
Exactly.
Got it. Now there's a pro tip here that I think is really important to kind of mention, and that is use triggers sparingly.
Yes.
Because I can see how you can kind of go crazy with these things.
Yeah, you can.
And just put triggers on everything.
Yeah.
But it's saying don't do that.
Right.
Why not?
Well, triggers can add complexity to your database, and they can also affect performance.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess if you have like a million triggers, right,
then that's not good.
Yeah.
especially if they're complex and they're doing a lot of things.
Exactly. They run automatically.
Right.
And often without the application knowing, so they can cause unexpected problems.
Right.
It's best to use them only when you really need them.
Okay, so be judicious. Be judicious in your use of triggers.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, so now let's move on to events.
Yes.
So triggers react to changes in your data.
Right.
But what about tasks that need to be performed on a regular schedule? Like, maybe you want to, clean up old data or generate reports or do backups.
Right.
How do you do that?
That's where events come in.
Okay.
So they're basically scheduled tasks that you can define within the database.
Okay.
To execute SQL code at specific times or intervals.
Okay. Okay.
So you could have an event that runs every day
Right.
or every week
Right.
at a specific time
Right.
to do these kinds of things.
Got it. Got it. So, I mean, and this is really good because, I mean, you know, we all have these tasks that we have to do
Yeah.
that are repetitive.
Yes.
And instead of having to, manually do them
Right.
or even write some external script,
Yeah.
we can just have the database take care of this.
Exactly. It's all built in.
Right.
It reduces the chances of human error.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an example here, clean up records,
Right.
and this event runs every day.
Every day. Yeah.
And it deletes records from the employee log table
Exactly.
that are older than 30 days.
Yeah. So it's keeping the log table from growing too large.
Okay, got it, got it.
So yeah, this is a good example of automating a routine maintenance task.
Right.
And, events can also be used for other things.
Okay.
Like you could optimize your database tables.
Right.
You could archive old data, send notifications,
Huh.
Lots of things.
Okay. Interesting, interesting. So the pro tip here is to use events to automate these routine maintenance tasks
Right.
and save a lot of effort.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so creating and using events.
Yeah.
What's the basic process here?
Okay. So it's kind of similar to creating triggers.
Okay.
So you use create event,
Okay.
give the event a name,
Right.
define the schedule, whether it's daily, weekly,
Okay.
and then you put the SQL code you want to execute in a begin-end block.
Okay.
Yeah.
So create event name on schedule.
Right.
And then, daily, weekly, whatever.
Exactly.
And then do begin and then your code and then end.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have an example here, generate monthly report.
Right.
So this event runs every month,
Okay.
and it inserts a monthly sales summary into a table called monthly reports.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and it does that by calculating the sum of sales from the order table.
Got it. Got it.
So it's a good example of how you can automate reporting.
Right.
Yeah.
And removing an event, that's just drop event name, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So this cleanup inactive users event, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So it runs on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And it deletes users from the users table that haven't logged in for 90 days.
Exactly.
So it's basically cleaning up the user table.
Yeah, it's removing inactive
Right,
users.
right.
And this is a good example of using conditional logic within an event.
Okay.
So it checks if the last login date is older than 90 days.
Right.
And if it is, it deletes the user.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now there's another example, send reminder emails.
Oh, yeah.
And this event runs daily, and it inserts notifications for users who haven't logged in for 30 days.
Exactly.
So it's basically reminding users.
Yeah, to come back and use the application or whatever it is.
Right.
You can even extend this to actually send out the email.
Okay,
But
right.
this example just inserts it into a notification table.
Okay, got it.
So you can see how you can automate communication as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. So the pro tip here is to use events to automate these repetitive tasks
Yeah,
to ensure consistency.
right.
Okay.
It's all about setting it up and then letting it run automatically.
Right. Okay, now what's interesting here is that triggers are reactive.
Right.
They respond to changes in data.
Yeah.
But events are proactive.
Yes.
They run on a schedule, regardless of whether there's been any changes in the data or not.
Exactly. Triggers are tied to events, data events,
Right.
like insert, update, delete.
Right.
And events are tied to time.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are two different ways of automating tasks within your database.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay, so let's look at a real world example here.
Okay.
Imagine we have an online retail store,
Right.
and we have a database for that store.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we could do is create a trigger called log order changes. And this trigger would fire after an order is updated.
Right.
And it would record the change in an order log table.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it would say, okay, this order ID was updated.
Right.
It was an update.
Exactly.
And this was the time.
Yeah, you could track every change to an order.
Right.
So you'd have a complete history.
And then we could have an event
Yeah.
that would generate a daily sales report.
Right.
So this event would run, every day.
Every day at a certain time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would calculate the total sales for that day
Right.
and insert a record into a daily sales report table.
Exactly.
So it would basically be automating the creation of this daily sales report.
Yeah, that's a common use case.
So these are two examples of how we can use triggers and events
Yeah.
in a real-world scenario.
Yeah, it's a good combination.
Yeah. The trigger is tracking the changes
Right.
as they happen,
Right.
and the event is creating a report.
Exactly. Based on, a schedule.
Yeah, they work well together.
Okay, so now let's do a little bit of a review,
Okay.
just to kind of solidify our understanding here.
Sounds good.
So what is a trigger?
A trigger is a database object that automatically executes a set of SQL statements in response to a specific event, like an insert, update, or delete.
Okay. And what are the three types of triggers?
There are before triggers, after triggers, and instead of triggers.
Okay, and how do you create a trigger?
So you use the create trigger command, give the trigger a name, specify the timing, the event, the table it's associated with, and then the SQL code it should execute within a begin-end block.
Okay, what's the difference between a before and an after trigger?
A before trigger executes before the event happens, so you
Right.
can use it to validate data,
Right.
event in action. An after trigger runs after the event is already done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you remove a trigger?
You use the drop trigger command followed by the name of the trigger.
Okay, what is an event? An event is a database object that contains SQL code that runs at a specific time
Right.
or on a schedule.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how do you create an event?
You use the create event command, give it a name, specify the schedule, and then the code you want to run in a do begin end block.
Okay. And how do you remove an event?
Drop event followed by the event name.
Okay, what do the new and old keywords mean in a trigger?
Okay, so new refers to the row being inserted or updated,
Okay,
and old refers to the row before it was updated or deleted.
got it.
Yeah.
So how do triggers help enforce business rules?
So before triggers can be used to validate data before it's written to the database.
Right,
And after triggers can be used to log changes for auditing purposes.
got it. Okay. What's the main difference between a trigger and an event?
A trigger is event-driven. It's triggered by data changes.
Right.
An event is time-driven. It runs based on a schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you handle errors in a trigger?
You can use the signal statement to raise an error and stop the operation.
Got it.
Yeah.
What does the for each row clause mean?
It means that the triggers code will run for each row that's affected by the triggering event.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you schedule an event to run at a specific time?
You use the on-schedule-at clause,
Yeah.
followed by the date and time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you disable an event without deleting it?
You use alter event, event name, disable.
Okay, got it, got it.
Yeah.
So that's a quick review of triggers and events.
Right.
Now let's try a couple of scenarios here.
Okay.
So how would you create a trigger to log changes to the order table?
Okay, so to create a trigger that logs changes to the order table, we could do something like this. We would create a trigger called log order changes, and it would be an after update trigger on the orders table, so after update on orders. And then for each row that is updated, we would insert a new record into a table called order log. So we would say for each row, and then begin insert into order log, ordered action time values, new.id, happy date, and
Okay, so that trigger will run after an order is updated.
yeah,
And it'll record the change in an order log table.
exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So it's inserting the order ID, the action, which is update in this case, and the current time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and how about an event to delete inactive users every month?
Okay, so to delete inactive users every month, we could create an event. Let's call it cleanup inactive users, and we'll schedule it to run every month. So on schedule every 1 month. And we want this to run on the first of every month, so we'll use starts current date plus interval 1 month, interval day, current date day, plus interval 1 day. And then the code to execute would be to begin delete from users where last login, current date interval 1 month, end.
Okay, so that event will run on the first of every month.
Yeah,
And delete any users that haven't logged in for a month.
exactly. It's cleaning up inactive users.
Got it. Okay, so that's it for our scenarios. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
What are the key takeaways about triggers and events?
Well, I think the key takeaways are that triggers allow you to automate actions in response to data changes.
Right.
So you can use them to enforce rules, to keep your data consistent, and to track changes.
Right.
And events allow you to schedule tasks to run automatically.
Right.
So you can automate things like maintenance, reporting, and communication.
Yeah, right.
So they're both really powerful tools for managing your database.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next deep dive
Yeah.
would be on on more advanced SQL techniques.
Yeah, we could delve into window functions, advanced indexing,
Right.
things like that.
So if you, the listener,
Yes.
have any questions about triggers or events, or if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover in future deep dives,
Yeah, please let us know.
you can reach us at your email address.
Yeah,
And we'd love to hear from you.
absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And until next time, happy querying.
Yeah, happy querying.
I like that.
We'll see you next time.
Okay, see you later.